Before the family enters the chapel, we just have a few brief announcements. We want to welcome everyone here as well as everyone that's viewing the service online. Just a gentle reminder for those of you that are here at the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. The interment will take place at New Light Cemetery, which is located in Lincolnwood. For those of you joining the procession, we'll make sure that we provide your vehicle with an orange funeral sticker, which should be placed inside the front portion of your windshield, as well as a magnetic flag. And while in procession, please be careful at the intersections and use your emergency flasher lights at all times. And please note that there is parking at the school across the street from the cemetery, the school parking lot. They've allowed us to use the parking there. Then the Shiva will be observed at the Tingley Ash residence following the interment until 9 p.m. this evening. The address is 6525 North Maplewood Avenue in Chicago. And then Shiva will resume Monday from 2 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the McGowan residence, 3827 South Damon Avenue, Unit 2 in Chicago. All this information is listed in the service folder that you received today and is also on our website. Following this service, I will ask the pallbearers to please step forward to help escort Nathaniel's casket from the chapel. James Ash, Thomas Ash, Gabriel Ash, Jack McGowan, Charlie McGowan, Marshall Botto, Callum Freuchen, Dustin Brown, and Richard Montalval. I'll ask at this time, please rise. The family enters the chapel.
There are some moments in life, and surely this is one of them, when we know that none of the words or thoughts that flood our minds is right, that nothing we say can possibly make sense of this heartbreak. Death has taken our beloved Nathaniel Walter Tingley, and we feel that we cannot go on. Our faith is shaken. Where is our consolation? Is there a sorrow greater than this? Why does joy end in sorrow? Why does love exact its price in tears? Oh God, help us to live with our grief. Help us to see that even if our questions were answered, the pain would be no less. The loneliness would remain bitter beyond words. Still, our hearts would ache. Help us to live with our grief, with what might have been. Help us to cry out loud, to hold each other gently. Help us to walk through darkness with faith in tomorrow. Let our silence reach out to Nathaniel's bereft family and friends. Let their tears fall on us. Let their anger break against us. Let our love and deeds speak for us. God, give us comfort and give us courage. Turn us to deeds that bless the living. In boundless grief, our ancient rabbis wrote, Ein od tefillah b'saftai. There is no longer a prayer on my lips. Yet we must pray, just as we weep, because we can do no other. I invite you to turn to the inside pamphlet to the words of the 23rd Psalm. Let us join together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The words of Solomon. A good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. For honor does not come from length of life or length of years. Understanding is the seat of humanity. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. Let us then, with peace of mind, let that good soul rest. My friends, there is little comfort that we can take away from today as we mourn Nathaniel's death. We are not here to somehow try to find a silver lining in the deep, suffocating clouds that fill this space. Just last Saturday, Nathaniel was doing what he loved, swimming in the ocean at the beach with Lucy, when he tragically and shockingly drowned. We are here to mourn and grieve for a life gone too soon, for oh so many things that by rights should have been. John and Evie have lost their beloved son. Lucy has lost her beloved husband. Phoebe has lost her adored father. Rachel, her cherished brother, and Charles and Jack, their brother-in-law. Martin and Holly have lost their son-in-law. Thomas and Susan, James and Jane, Richard and Kathleen, Ruth and Anthony, their dear nephew, and Alice and Gabrielle, their fun-loving cousin. And countless many have lost their very best cousin and friend. And in that, there is enough pain and despair that we risk allowing Nathaniel's death to come to define his life, and not for the fullness of who he was as a person. And so it is that we must remember Nathaniel for all he was, for the life that he lived for 31 years. 31 years is not long enough. But Nathaniel's 31 years were full of life. He lived most fully in the countless lives he touched. For the mark he made on this world and the indelible legacy he leaves behind. Nathaniel was born in Chicago at Michael Reese Hospital on November 27, 1992, the day after Thanksgiving. Evie and John brought Nathaniel to their home on Maplewood to big sister Rachel. From a very young age, Nathaniel was a bit stubborn. The family would joke that the popular children's book, I Want to Do It Myself, should have had Nathaniel's photo on the cover. He would refuse to eat, making it very difficult for the family to go out to restaurants. But one day, Evie and John decided to give Nathaniel the spoon, and problem solved. Or the time when Nathaniel's Uncle Jamie and Aunt Jane were babysitting. Nathaniel must have only been 2, and he refused to stay in his crib. So then they agreed to let him lay on the floor, but there too he managed to escape. Eventually, Nathaniel made his way back to the crib, and when John and Evie came back from their night out, there was Nathaniel standing in his crib, gripping the wooden poles, shouting, "They tried to put me to bed." It is true that Nathaniel had an opinion about everything, and most of the time he was right. He was smart and curious from a very young age. Like how at the age of 4, clearly observed Rick Steves, that guy is always on vacation. Or when the family was on a road trip to Starved Rock, Nathaniel was so enchanted by the wood in the lodge where they stayed that he asked if they could live there. Nathaniel attended Boone Elementary and then the pre-IB program at Lincoln and Jones Prep for high school. To say Nathaniel was very smart is an understatement. He never met a standardized test that he couldn't ace. But when it came to busy work, Nathaniel had no patience. For Nathaniel, the school years were defined by his spark for the arts and creativity, and of course, his friends. From a young age, Nathaniel was always drawing machines, helicopters, tanks. And when he would hang out with the other kids from the neighborhood, they didn't just build. They climbed a tree in the backyard to get up onto the garage roof, and only then and there did they build a fort. There was the one time, too, where Nathaniel wrote a paper in school on a piece of art from the Art Institute. His paper was so impressive that the teacher had thought he plagiarized it. But that was Nathaniel, creative, brilliant, wise, and intellectual. After high school, Nathaniel went off to Grinnell College, where he majored in art studio with a minor in neuroscience. It was freshman year in a Shakespeare class that Nathaniel met Lucy McGowan. When they started dating sophomore year, one of Nathaniel's friends reacted, "Lucy, she's really nice. She's going out with you?" But Nathaniel wooed Lucy right away. He was very thoughtful and a little mysterious. But on their first date, Nathaniel cooked for Lucy in the college dorm kitchen, this elaborate crepe chicken dish that the two of them then ate together in the fire escape. In so many ways, Lucy and Nathaniel grew up together. They spent their college years together, they got their first jobs together, moved back to Chicago into the Tingley home together, and then moved into their first apartment together. Nathaniel's first job was at Shipt, and then at the Oppenheimer Gallery, where he excelled at everything he did, eventually gaining more and more responsibility before Nathaniel and his friend Dustin Brown opened their own high-end art framing, Tingley and Brown. When Nathaniel moved back to Chicago, he also began teaching 7th grade at Chicago Sinai Congregation and then became a B'nai Mitzvah tutor. Nathaniel cared deeply about the subject matters that he taught, social justice and Holocaust studies. His intellectual, creative, and kind-heartedness were all combined in the classroom, where Nathaniel somehow managed to keep 7th graders engaged during Sunday school. He was a highly requested B'nai Mitzvah tutor and built so many relationships with his students over the many years. But none was as special as when Nathaniel had the joy of tutoring his cousin Gabriel. The family all recall that during Gabriel's bar mitzvah, everyone had one eye on Gabriel and the other eye on Nathaniel, watching him too beam with pride. Gabriel will always cherish the moment right after Nathaniel offered the aliyah, giving him a big hug and whispering in his ear, "You're killing it, buddy." He was a super cool and funny cousin. Alice especially loved sitting next to him at family gatherings, listening to Nathaniel's quiet asides, and the time where he helped her move into her apartment. In fact, how many people in this room did Nathaniel help move? You don't actually have to raise your hands. Or help you dig your car out in the winter. Nathaniel was really good at being there for people, for friends, family, neighbors. He would do just about anything for others and always helped so many people. In so many ways, Nathaniel had the whole package. He was smart, talented, generous, kind, loving, empathetic, a groovy mensch. Nathaniel did not live long enough. He did not spend enough time with his beloved wife, Lucy. They were in so many ways just getting started. Sure, Nathaniel had learned to become a traveler, and the two of you took trips together to Yellowstone and Yosemite, to Greece and Mexico. And when you brought Phoebe into this world, Lucy, you said Nathaniel was the happiest you'd ever seen him. He was truly the best dad in the world. He'd lie on the floor coaching Phoebe to roll over, "Come on, Phoebes." And every morning when Phoebe would wake up, she'd look at Nathaniel with the biggest smile on her face. Or how he would hold Phoebe under his arm, calling her his little princess. Together, the three of you had a wonderful summer in Nantucket with the McGowans. Nathaniel loved being a private chef and loved the days at the beach. Nathaniel Tingley did not live long enough, and his death leaves an immense and unfillable void. Lucy, you and Nathaniel had so many plans: relaxing beach vacations, buying an apartment with Cal, and raising your beautiful daughter, Phoebe, together. But we will remember Nathaniel for the meaningful life he lived so fully, so joyfully while he was with us, and for the gifts of his heart which blessed countless many and will be his enduring legacy. May the memory of Nathaniel Tingley always be for a blessing. We're going to now hear from Nathaniel's sister, Rachel, and then from his dear friend, Cal Freiken.
Thank you all for coming. My family and I have felt all of your immense love over the past week. We have been able to eat, drink, and sleep because you all have been there for us, and because my job gave me time off, and because when I called everyone, they immediately came. My brother's friends and their parents, my friends, Lucy's friends, my parents' friends, all our family, everyone came immediately. One thing I want to make immediately clear is that we hate the phrase "passed away," and that we would really prefer if you just told everyone that Nathaniel died. When our Uncle Jerry died, our friend Richard told Nathaniel that he was sorry, that Uncle Jerry had passed away. Nathaniel responded curtly with a glint in his eye and a grin. "Protestants pass away, we Jews die." Although, of course, that's ridiculous, because at first I thought it wasn't true, because how could it be true? But of course it is. He was 31, and this is a great tragedy. But the truth is that he is dead, and he hated anything fake. He hated fake pleasantries and fake reasons for things, and he would have hated it if anyone danced around the fact that he was just dead. It is so hard to sum up 31 years of life and a whole person into one speech, but it is especially difficult for Nathaniel, who was immense in stature, in opinions, in love. I am sure I am forgetting things that I will wish I had said later. I know most of you who are here knew him, so you know how difficult it is, but for those who didn't, you're simply just going to have to know that he was indescribable, a person beyond compare. There is a Patricia Polacco children's book we loved as kids called Mrs. Katzentush, which is about an elderly Jewish widow and her relationship with a young boy in her apartment complex. When she talks about her late husband, she says, "My Myron was such a person, such a person." Nathaniel was such a person. He was such a person. He was brave and strong and silly and mean and cool and handsome and frustrating and wonderful. It is impossible to condense him into a room, let alone attempt to convey all the things my family and I feel about and know about him into one eulogy. We have spent the last week sitting Shiva and telling each other all the things we could remember about him, but it simply isn't enough to convey how incredibly significant he was, how magnificent and how different and how singular. When he was in second grade at Boone, his teacher, Mrs. Ozima, was doing a read aloud to the class. At one point in the story, she came to the phrase sitting duck. "Does anyone know what it means to be a sitting duck?" she asked. And my brother raised his hand. "Yes," he said. "It means you're vulnerable." This anecdote of my 8-year-old brother made such an impression on Mrs. Ozima that she told my parents about it years later. I think it exemplifies something important about Nathaniel, which is that he was usually the smartest person in the room, and that was clear from the time he was about 2. He always had an idea about how something should work, and he let you know that what that way was. And the worst and most frustrating thing about that was that he was usually right. Even when he was a child, he was usually right. He never met a machine he couldn't take apart to figure out. Putting it back together? Our mom always said he could have done anything he wanted, but that it had to be what he actually wanted. He was a younger brother in all ways, which is to say he was incredibly annoying to me specifically. He was annoying because of all the normal younger brother things. He mocked all the stuff I liked. When he was in 7th grade and I was in freshman year of high school, he made a PowerPoint called Rachel Sucks about all the reasons that I sucked. And I remember that the ending slide said, "And her favorite band is called Tegan and Sarah. That's just 2 people's names with and in between them. And that's just stupid." Which is the other thing I want to emphasize about Nathaniel, which is that he was the funniest person I knew. When I was in 7th grade, we got cable TV for the first time, and soon after, I became personally obsessed with Dragon Ball Z. He made fun of me for this because it's a show that's very easy to make fun of. I always took him at face value that he hated it for this reason, but one time, while I was looking through his bedside table years later for a pen, I found an original Dragon Ball Z character that he had drawn and written a biography of below. I never told him I found it because that would have called attention to it, and I didn't want to jinx that he liked the same thing I liked. It was a few more years until we could communicate on the same level about things we did like. I found a tweet that he sent me in 2021 that really sums this up. It reads, "Having siblings is so weird, LOL. You spend the first 15 years of your lives fighting, and one day you wake up like, this motherfucker all right." We fought a lot as kids, mostly as teens, but it was always understood that we could fight but still love each other. In fact, it seemed best to fight because we loved each other, that it made sense to fight because we could criticize each other to the fullest degree without consequence. My mom and my brother shared their sharp, keen way of looking at a human being and immediately knowing what they are about. They shared cooking and a love of food that made every gathering special, not just holidays. Our mom cooked meals for us most nights a week, and we ate together as a family almost every night, which I know Nathaniel was grateful for and wanted to emulate in his own family. One of the first things he told me about his plans for parenthood was that he was going to make all his own baby food from scratch because he didn't trust the prepackaged stuff, which I told him at the time was the most Nathaniel thing I could possibly imagine. And he never would have been that person without my mom, who encouraged this in him and was patient with him even when he told her the better ways to cook things at 5 years old. Her care for the love of words inspired us both. Nathaniel used words carefully and powerfully, like my mom, which I always admired in both of them. Nathaniel was so much like our dad in terms of what he liked to do and what he thought. Our dad taught him how to work with his hands and take things apart and sometimes put them back together. They shared a love of machinery, but also of learning, of consuming everything there possibly is to know about a subject, just to become an expert in many things, just for the interest of it all. Nathaniel surprised my dad with new information all the time, which is a thing that is hard to do. They love to talk to each other about everything there is to talk about. My brother taught my dad new ways to do things, much to my father's delight. Both of my parents were so proud of Nathaniel, even when they were incredibly frustrated with him. My brother was influenced by many people, our uncles, aunts, and cousins, our Maplewood village, his teachers, his friends, and me. I feel so lucky to see that many of them are here and have been here for us this week. As I wrote this, and as I stand here, I keep thinking of Myron Perlman and our Uncle Jerry, who were the last two funerals we attended here at Chicago Jewish Funerals. My brother always looked up to my Uncle Jerry, who was a Holocaust survivor and businessman. He made his own luck. Nathaniel made his own luck too. I've been trying to remember the first time I met Lucy, and I'm sure she remembers, but I don't, because she fits so perfectly into our family like a puzzle piece that it was a natural acclamation. Immediately, I told Nathaniel that he was incredibly lucky to be dating her and that she was wildly out of his league. And at first he agreed, and then he told me I was an asshole. Both can be true. We loved Lucy immediately. She made Nathaniel a better person. She questioned his perfect plans and pointed out their ridiculous nature in a way I don't think he'd ever encountered before. And it made him grow into the man I was so proud to know and watch become a father. I remember that at Myron Perlman's funeral, his son Isaac came up and said how unfair it was that Myron would never meet any grandchildren he would have. And I remember thinking how true that was. Nathaniel will never get to meet my partner, Jack, because we were waiting until he got home from Nantucket to introduce them. He won't get to see me have kids or our cousins continue to grow up. He won't get to see his friends make strides in their careers in art. And he won't get to see Phoebe grow up, which is the most deeply unfair thing. He loved Phoebe so much. He was the greatest dad in the world. The last video he sent us was him praising her for her holding her neck up and exclaiming how strong she was. And I'm so glad that she has that video. And that she'll have everyone here to love her. The weirdest thing about this has been being unable to text him and ask him what he thinks about this, because he'd have something pithy to say. But I think if I could speak with him, I would say, I'm really scared to live without you. And he would say, we're all scared. It's the human condition. Which is both true, and it's also a quote from Futurama.
Thank you, Rachel. Now invite Nathaniel's friend, Cal Freuchen.
I printed mine out. Oh, shit. Hey, everybody. My name is Cal. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to do this today. Dear Phoebe, to say your dad was my best friend is a cruel understatement. I hope this turns out to be eloquent, but I don't have his help this time. Your dad was uniquely descriptive and had a talent for brevity, which made him both wise and hilarious. That made him useful to have around when I had something hard to write, like an artist statement, not just for word choice, but to tell me to take a breath and stop taking life so seriously. Your dad was a true craftsman, not only in framing a thought or a piece of art, but in the way he built his life around satisfaction and joy according to his principles. I had the privilege of building my life next to him. I was his helper. I met your dad in high school choir class. I took choir because I already played the piano and didn't want to take a new instrument. When he wasn't mumbling, our vocal ranges were the same. So we sat in the same section, becoming instant companions. The student teacher had trouble getting my name correct and would always call me Kyle. I was never one for confirmation, but your dad would insist on correcting him every single time. I, on the other hand, would call your dad exclusively by his last name for the first 8 years or so. There was already 2 Nathaniels in his group of friends, so he graciously accepted the use of his excellent last name, Tingley. I'd often confuse people when I'd affectionately refer to him as Ting when I joined him at college. My brother's name is Nat, short for Nathaniel. Life gave me another brother with the same name. We'd hang out after school on most half days, getting up to mild amounts of mischief. We'd sit in his parents' basement with friends, watching movies and giggling like idiots. Your dad's cackle was amazing. I'll give you an impression sometime. I hope you smile and roll your eyes at me like he would when I'd say something dumb just to make myself laugh. We spent beautiful days walking around Grant Park, tossing a frisbee and eating Harold's chicken. When the timing was right, we'd ride the train home together. We were going to different ends of the same neighborhood. Your dad got off the train before I did. Your dad was in the graduating class above me, Phoebe. When I started thinking about college, he just happened to message me and told me to visit him at Grinnell, a liberal arts school in Iowa, surrounded by cornfields. Things lined up and we shared the same dorm for my first 2 years, Main Hall. The first of our crew was your dad's roommate, Richard Montalvo, another close friend from high school. I felt at home because of them. Their dorm rooms were communal places for many people on campus. We had so much fun and built many of our close friendships there. One friend of ours remembers watching your mom, Lucy, and your dad dancing together in the basement venue of Main Hall, thinking that everybody wanted what they had. I agreed. I went to your dad's room on the top floor when my aunt died, and he held me until I stopped crying. Your dad told me that even if someone isn't around anymore, you can make them live forever. You let your memories of them influence how you move through the world, and you become a custodian of their soul. I got to have many other powerful conversations with your dad, walking to the hill at the outskirts of town, sometimes with groups of friends, and other times just me and him. One year we lived together in a house off campus. The first night, your dad improvised an elaborate red sauce, and we ate pasta on the upstairs deck on a cool summer evening. We talked about food and art and made plans. Your dad attributed his love of food to your grandmother, Evie, and he cooked every day in that house. I beat the egg whites for him when he made pancakes, and he taught us to appreciate coffee. Living there definitely wasn't all tame. I remember watching him look down the staircase during a party we threw, sighing, and then waving up some people who decided to show up naked. We watched Predator as a throwback to his basement on my 21st birthday. We walked together to classes we made sure that we shared. His critiques were sharp and constructive and pulled no punches. I asked him not to. How do you get better if nobody tells you the truth? His artwork is incredibly clean and crisp, and he always built things from scratch. Our professors became friends and mentors. Those I keep in touch with always ask me about him. I had too much to tell, but I heard the joy in their voices when I spoke of our friendship, him marrying your mom, and especially when you, Phoebe, joined our family. I spent nearly all of my free time with your dad. In 2020, I went in with him on an empty workshop space. I was hesitant at first because it didn't have everything I thought I needed. He looked at me and said that if I waited to be ready or for the perfect opportunity, it would never happen. I started making art again. We spent the next year carving out a room for me and building out the workshop. Early into the build-out, he decided to leave his job and became partners with his old friend and coworker, Dustin Brown, to turn this into a fully fledged wood shop and frame studio, Tingley and Brown Company. I remember talking about the idea of uncertainty in relation to art and this next chapter. He said, if we knew what would happen, there'd be no point in showing up. Unfamiliarity was never an obstacle. Your grandfather, John, instilled in your dad an unstoppable curiosity about how things functioned. Your dad pushed me to try things I never would have thought of, even if it was just something he saw one time years ago. If I didn't know what to do or how to do something, he'd have the answer. I would joke that most of the time I just did what he told me, but that's not the whole truth. He knew me better than I did, and so his instructions would always end up being what I really wanted in life. He was talented at sifting through a mess and finding what was good and true and lasting. He was an excellent judge of character. I trusted him. He trusted me. Like his mom, your dad was a true master of the quip. He once said that his business takes worthless garbage and radically transforms it into worthless garbage. He made beautiful furniture in perfect frames, themselves works of art. I became his and Dustin's biggest framing client this year. Your dad helped me choose works and engineered the entirety of my debut show in Chicago. He called it vibe-gineering. Fucking idiot. The frames rhymed perfectly with my work. The show was a few weeks after you were born, Phoebe. You were my favorite person who showed up. At the end of the weekend, after everyone had left, your dad and I sat quietly together, surrounded by our work, enjoying the satisfaction of a job well done and each other's company. That was the happiest I've ever been. Your dad and I would meet at the gym at a soft 7 a.m. No texts of confirmation needed. Afterwards, I'd follow your dad home where he'd make us our breakfast, our usual breakfast, yogurt with sliced fruit, freshly toasted nuts, sometimes with a protein pancake or his mom's preserves. It was decadent, but the truth of the matter is your dad was a cheapskate. He'd buy 2 containers of store-brand yogurt, the non-fat and the full-fat, to mix them together and save $2. It was incredibly elaborate for a simple routine meal, but we got the ritual down to a science. We'd sit at our preferred places at the table. He'd read the newspaper and I'd read a book. Your mom worked at the desk next to us. He'd performatively read our horoscopes aloud, and we'd all laugh about what things might mean. It was especially fun when he started doing yours. After that, we'd head to the shop. Your dad would come into my section and chat about what I was making, or just get straight to his work. After a few hours, one of us would hit a good stopping point and decide it was time to eat, often communicated through eye contact and rubbing our bellies. Sometimes we'd hit the hot dog stand, but we'd mostly walk back to your place. I made us coffee, and he made us lunch. Your dad would sometimes stop along the way to pick wildflowers for your mom. I brought a dandelion when I came to meet you. We'd walk back to the shop and get back to business for a while before I'd leave to go to work. On rare occasions I wasn't there, he'd text me random silly things, like calling me Mark Makeley after seeing some drawings I left out. If he spent the morning at home, he would still invite me to lunch. I'm glad that your dad thought about me as often as I did him. He took care of me. Your dad found joy in the rituals of cooking. It was a blend of all the things he was interested in: science, art, community, pleasure. Your dad and my brother Nat were like evil geniuses when they started talking about food or drink. I'd listen to them get excited together, and I loved watching them push each other towards more and more ridiculous menus. He was intuitively capable, and cooking was one of his main ways of showing love to his family. If he had one fault, it's that he worked too much. The workshop was a way to carve out his own slice of life, but the overhead cost was time. He loved the challenges of the business, but it meant there was always more to do. The routine of movement and the satisfaction of progress is powerful, but the trade doesn't feel worth it if you aren't around to enjoy the payoff. There was never a question if one of us needed anything at all, not just artistic help, but moving, construction, painting, whatever. We would ask 2 questions: where and when. I drove the 3 of you to the airport at the beginning of the summer. I would move the world for him and your mom. He knew that. I told him that many times, especially after you were born. I hope you understand what that means to me. I have a particularly vivid memory of your dad mentioning your mom for the first time, Phoebe. He had laughter in his eyes and a smile on his face, but said in all seriousness that she was a goddess. Your mom made sacrifices to make sure they could be together. She's a wonderful teacher. While I loved your dad before, your mom made him into a better man. She'd grown over a joke, he said, just to bother her, a skill that was forged in fire, growing up with your Aunt Rachel. That exchange would immediately be followed by a gentle touch or a soft kiss. The three of us would sometimes play spades after impromptu dinners. I would shuffle and deal, and we'd play a game or two. We were all pretty equally matched, but your mom won the last time we played. When your mom was pregnant and ready to share the news, it took your dad a few days to get around to telling me. After congratulating him, we went to your apartment to have lunch. Your mom's reaction to my hug was hilarious. I told Nathaniel this morning how weird it was he hadn't told you yet. His response was even better. I don't know. It never came up. He learned his lesson. The day after you were born, he called me and said she's perfect. I met you the following day. Your mom handed you to me, and I understood what he meant. He took you into his arms and sang the first two bars of a song we learned in choir class 16 years ago. I've been weeping a lot this past week. I'm doing what needs to be done because he taught me to. The only thing that's brought me joy and hope is dancing with you, Phoebe, and making you smile. I wish your dad was around to watch and tell me what to do next. I spoke with your dad on the phone for a little over an hour the week before he died. He said y'all were having a blast. He was working hard, but actually getting to relax and spend time with you and your mom. I'm so glad that he got to do that. I'll miss him for the rest of my life. Love, Cal.
Take a few moments now for our own private and silent remembrance. I invite you to rise if you are able. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtse Menucha Nechonat Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im kedoshim utahorim kezohar harakia mazhirim. Et nishmat Nathaniel shahalach leolamo. Ba'al harachamim yastirehu beseter kanafav leolamim. Bitzror hachaim et nishmato. Adonai hu nachalato. Ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo. V'nomar. Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Nathaniel W. Tingley, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. Amen.
of you. But long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, well, life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me, so what good would living do me? God only knows what I'd be without you. God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me, so what good would